every discontinued muscle car explained. Muscle cars only exist because Detroit figured out you could take a mid-size body, drop in the biggest engine on the shelf, and sell it for less than a family sedan. For about 2 decades, that formula printed money. Then insurance companies, emissions regulators, and the '73 oil crisis all showed up at once. And this list is largely the result of that collision. The Plymouth Hemi Cuda, built from 1970 to 1971, it packed Chrysler's 426 Hemi into a compact E-body, one of the few cars of its era that could genuinely outrun what it looked like it could outrun. Fewer than 1,500 were built across both years combined, because the insurance surcharge on the Hemi option alone often cost more than a base engine. It's now one of the most expensive American cars ever sold at auction, a car nobody wanted to insure in 1971, going for over $3 million 50 years later. Next up, the Oldsmobile 442, 4-barrel carb, 4-speed manual, dual exhaust, which is literally what the name stood for. It launched in 1964 as Oldsmobile's answer to the Pontiac GTO and stuck around on and off through several body changes and 3 separate cancellations. The badge kept getting revived and killed again through the 70s and 80s as Olds tried to figure out whether performance or luxury was actually its identity. It never fully committed to either, and by 1991, the name was gone for good. Next up, the AMC Javelin, American Motors pony car, built from 1968 to 1974. AMC was the smallest of the Detroit automakers and had no business competing with Ford and Chevy on muscle. Yet, the Javelin won the Trans Am Racing Championship in 1971 against factory teams with vastly bigger budgets. It's arguably the best racing result any AMC product ever achieved, and almost nobody remembers it because AMC folded the Javelin 2 years later to focus on Jeep and economy cars. Next up, the Plymouth Superbird, the car with the 2-foot rear wing and the pointed nose cone, built purely to legalize a NASCAR aerodynamics package. Plymouth had to build one road car for every 2 dealerships just to qualify it for racing, which meant flooding the market with a car most buyers found genuinely embarrassing to drive. Dealers reportedly still had unsold Superbirds on their lots 2 years later and were slashing thousands off the sticker just to move them. Next up, the Dodge Charger Daytona, the Superbird sibling, and the first car to officially break 200 miles per hour on a NASCAR oval. Same Era War origin story, same nose cone and wing, same 1-year production run in 1969. NASCAR responded by essentially legislating the whole winged car era out of existence the following season, which means the Daytona and Superbird only ever raced against each other for a single year before the rules made them both obsolete. Next up, the Buick GNX, 1987 only, 547 built. It was a turbocharged Grand National, so quick that it reportedly outran the Chevrolet Corvette of the same year in a straight line, from a Buick, a brand best known at the time for cars driven by retirees. GM discontinued rear-wheel drive G-body production that same year for unrelated reasons. So, the fastest Buick ever built also happened to be the last one of its kind, on purpose or not. Next up, the original Pontiac GTO, the car most historians point to as the one that started the muscle car category in the first place back in 1964. It worked by exploiting a GM loophole that limited engine size in mid-size cars except for options, so Pontiac just made the big engine an option on the Tempest. GM closed that loophole a few years later specifically because of the GTO, and the car itself ran through 1974 before fuel prices and insurance costs finally caught up with it. Next up, the Ford Torino Talladega, built for one purpose: winning NASCAR races, named after the track Ford wanted to dominate. Ford stretched the nose and smoothed the body specifically to cut wind resistance, then built just enough street versions, a little over 700, to satisfy homologation rules. It worked. Torino Talladegas swept the top finishing spots in their debut race. The street version disappeared from the lineup almost as fast as it won, replaced the following year by a redesigned Torino nobody remembers for racing. Next up, the Mercury Cyclone spoiler, Mercury's version of the same Talladega era aero experiment, right down to sharing dealership floor space with drivers who actually raced it, including Cale Yarborough and Dan Gurney, whose names were literally stitched onto specific trim packages. Mercury discontinued the Cyclone name entirely by 1972, largely because the brand was struggling to justify a separate performance identity from Ford at all, a problem that would eventually get the whole Mercury division shut down decades later. Next up, the Plymouth Roadrunner, the one built around a licensing deal with Warner Brothers for the cartoon character, horn beep included, for which Plymouth paid an actual licensing fee per car. It was marketed as the no-frills muscle car, rubber floor mats, bare bones interior, low base price, all engine. It sold extremely well at first, over 80,000 units in its debut year alone. But as buyers wanted more comfort and less noise. Through the 70s, the stripped-down formula stopped making sense, and Plymouth killed the nameplate in 1980. Next up, the Dodge Superbee, Dodge's answer to the Roadrunner, and built on largely the same idea. Cheap, fast, minimal trim. It never outsold its Plymouth cousin despite being mechanically near identical, partly because Dodge marketed it less aggressively, and partly because Roadrunner was simply a stronger cartoon license than a B logo. Dodge discontinued it after 1971, only to briefly revive the name decades later on a Charger trim package that had nothing to do with the original car's stripped-down philosophy. Next up, AMC's Rebel the Machine. One model year, 1970, painted almost exclusively in a red, white, and blue scheme, with a hood-mounted tachometer so the driver never had to look down at the dash. It was AMC's most powerful production car to that point, but the Rebel nameplate itself was already being phased out in favor of the Matador, so the Machine got exactly 1 year to exist before its entire platform was renamed out from under it. Next up, the Oldsmobile Rally 350 1970 only, built specifically to dodge rising insurance premiums by using a smaller 350 cubic inch engine instead of a big block, while still painting the entire car, bumpers included, in the same eye-searing Sebring yellow. It was a clever workaround for the insurance problem that killed so many other muscle cars on this list, but Oldsmobile still only kept the exact package around for a single year before folding its ideas back into the standard 4-4-2 lineup. Next up, the first generation Shelby GT500, Carroll Shelby's big block version of the Mustang, built from 1967 to 1970. Shelby himself reportedly grew less interested in the project as Ford took over more of the design and marketing decisions. And, by the final year, Shelby American wasn't meaningfully involved in building the cars at all. Ford dropped the entire Shelby Mustang line after 1970 and wouldn't revive the GT500 name for another 37 years. Next up, the Pontiac Firebird Trans Am in its final fourth-generation form through 2002. This was the WS 6-optioned, LS 1-powered version that could run with cars costing twice as much, right up until GM shut down the entire Firebird line. Not because it wasn't fast, but because the factory it was built in was being converted for SUV production. A business GM considered far more profitable at the time. Next up, the Chevrolet Chevelle SS, home to the 454 cubic inch LS6, widely cited as one of the highest factory horsepower ratings of the entire muscle car era. The Chevelle nameplate survived the 1973 emissions and insurance crunch that killed so many rivals, but only by quietly becoming a much softer, lower output car. The SS badge stuck around into the late 70s, attached to engines that would have embarrassed the name a few years earlier. Next up, the 2004 Pontiac GTO revival, an Australian-built Holden Monaro rebadged with the GTO name for the US market. Enthusiasts largely rejected it for looking too conservative to carry a name associated with 1960s excess, despite genuinely strong performance underneath. Pontiac pulled it after just 3 model years, and the entire Pontiac brand itself was shut down by GM 5 years later during the 2009 bankruptcy restructuring. Next up, and finally, the Dodge Challenger and Chevrolet Camaro, both discontinued within a year of each other, in 2023 and 2024. Both went out not from lack of sales. The Challenger was actually the best-selling car in its segment the year Dodge killed it, but because both companies redirected their factories and platforms toward electric and hybrid performance models instead. The last Challenger built, a shaker wide body, sold at charity auction for over $400,000, which means the most successful muscle car on this entire list, by the numbers, was killed at the peak of its popularity. Not because it failed, but because gasoline V8 muscle cars, as a category, ran out of road. That's every one of them. 18 cars, 6 decades, one recurring cause of death: insurance, emissions, or the factory floor getting repurposed. Detroit didn't run out of ideas, it ran out of loopholes. If you want more of these, subscribe. Till next time.